this craft is going to be one of the best crafts you can learn because it works every league. You are almost always going to make at least 15 divs profit with this craft, and you can pretty much never saturate the market. So if you only want one craft that you can no life it, like you can craft like 10 hours per day and never oversaturate the market, this is it. It's going to be crafting Stygian Vises, and at this the only you cannot use this craft only when it's too late into the league and there are not enough people selling Stygian Vises in bulk. And you're also going to be limited by how many stashes you have. The way you are going to buy Stygian Vises, you're going to go to this Discord server, which I'm pretty sure most of you know. It's the Forbidden Trove. Then you scroll to Ancestors Softcore Bulk Wanted to Sell. You go to Bulk Bases, and here you just Ctrl F and type Stygian and enter, and you message these people, and you're going to buy a bunch of Stygian Vises without having to do like 20 different trades. So you're going to pay like 8 to 10 kills per a Stygian Vice, and within 5 minutes you're going to pretty much have a few stashes full of Stygian Vices. I wanted to show you how you would approach crafting Stygian Vices in the first day of the league, and then I'm going to go over how I would craft at this point into the league, considering this is week 2. If you are trying to craft Stygian Vises at the beginning of the league, you are going to buy Stygian Vises item level 84, and you're going to pay like 2 kills for a Stygian Vise, considering this is day 1. So keep in mind this is day 1 of the league. You're going to buy Stygian Vises item level 84, and you're going to spam Shrieking or Screaming Essences of Envy, depending on the prices that they go for. But it's usually going to be Shrieking Essences of Envy, and you're pretty much going to craft either life from the bench craft. You're going to craft either maximum life, you're going to craft increased elemental damage with attacks or armor, or another resistance from the bench craft, and you're pretty much going to sell those belts for like 15, 20, 30 kills, and it's not much, but considering this is day 1 of the league, this is how basically you're going to get started if you are interested in doing that. Now, considering you have it's day 2 or day 3 of the league and you already have like 10, 15, 20 kills, 10, 15, 20 divines, how I would approach this craft would be to check the PoE, the Forbidden Trove Discord server, and see if there are people buying in bulk. If there are still people not buying in bulk, I would not touch this craft, but if there are people selling in bulk, I would not touch this craft. But if you find some people selling bulk, I would message them, and I would spam either Shrieking or Deafening Gases of Envy, and I would sell pretty much every belt that is about above 30 kills or more. And I would just craft hundreds of these belts, and I would just leave them into my stash. For example, I would list them for like 80 kills or 70 kills, a bunch of them. Obviously this comes with experience. If you want to price check individually, you can price every belt individually, and I will lower the prices until they reach like 30 kills. And if they don't sell at 30 kills, which most of these belts are going to sell for like 40, 50 kills, some of them are going to be sold for like 1 or 2 divs, and then I would just reuse them, right? Because you pay anyway 10 kills for the base. And now I'm going to go more into the bit more expensive version of this craft. It's the better one, because at this point into the league, people are not necessarily looking to buy like a 30 kills belt. It's going to be a bit more expensive, but also the profit margins are going to be a bit more expensive, and it's not going to fill all your stashes because you're going to craft less belts. You're going to sell them for a much higher price because you're going to invest more. You are going to buy Stygian Vises. Once again, you go to the TFT Discord, you message these people, you buy Stygian Vises, you scour all those Stygian Vises, you make them white, and then you're going to apply fertile catalyst. The reason why you want to apply fertile catalyst is because on Stygian Vises, the most important modifier is going to be maximum life. People are not necessarily looking for resistances, they are looking for as much maximum life as possible. So for example, if you have a belt that has this tier 4 of maximum life, you're going to, and it also has, let's just say, tier 1 chaos resistance, tier 1, or like this 40% cold and 42 to 45 lightning, and it only has like 60 to 69 maximum life, you're going to have a hard time selling a belt like this. But let's just say that your belt has 60 times 1 times 1.2. If your belt has 72 life, it's going to be much easier to sell it because it has more life, and people value life on these belts. So you have to understand, you have to apply fertile catalyst. The way you buy fertile catalyst in bulk, you just go to the trade website, bulk item exchange. Here you open catalyst, and usually you have to pay in divines. But if you get it for much cheaper paying chaos, you can do it in chaos, but usually it's going to be in divines. And you can see that these are quite expensive. You are going to pay like, you're going to use 4 catalysts for each belt, and because of that you're not going to sell Stygian Vises for 30 chaos. Probably, at least the cheapest I would go would be to sell Stygian Vises for like 70 chaos, but this is up to you, you make your own calculations. Now let's go over the most important modifiers on a Stygian Vise. As I said, the number one most important modifier is going to be maximum life. Tier 1 maximum life sells the best. This is by far the modifier that sells the most, and obviously you're going to have a chaos resistance tier 1 from deafening essences of envy. The other modifiers that are important, it's going to be tier 1 regenerate life per second, and also the roll of life regenerated per second 96, it's going to have less value than 128, obviously. Another modifier that is really important, it's going to be increased flask charges gained, flask effect duration, tier 1. These reduced flask charges, people are going to buy it, and they're going to pay quite a lot for a belt that has reduced flask charges used. If the roll it's 20, 19 to 20, this is only one tire, but if the roll it's around 20, people are going to pay a lot for this mod right here. Strength is also very good modifier on Stygian Vises, because especially the sleek people are using lots of tattoos and they need attributes, and strength is one of those valuable attributes because of the empower. And other than that is going to be the basic resistances, at least for the suffixes. Now let's go over the prefixes. But remember that the most important modifier that you can have on a Stygian Vise, it's going to be the maximum life, as much life as possible. This is by far the most important modifier. Then for the suffixes, it's going to be regenerate life and the flask charges. These are the most valuable modifiers, and then from that it's going to be strength and resistances. For the prefixes, it's going to be armor, it's going to be increased elemental damage with attacks, and increased effect. Flasks applied to you have increased effect. Maximum energy shield, those modifiers don't really sell. Flask life recovery rate, it's okay. Some builds are going to pay a premium to get this mod, but usually this doesn't sell. These are the most important mods. It's going to be increased elemental damage with attacks, armor, and flasks applied to have increased effect. From the benchcraft, if you have a prefix, usually you are going to craft increased elemental damage with attacks or armor. For example, if you have, let's just say, tier 1 chaos resistance from the essence, then another tier 1 of resistances and strength. Then you're going to craft increased elemental damage with attacks. But if you have the flask modifiers with chaos resistance and some other resistance, then people usually want armor. And if you have resistances with life regenerate per second, also you are going to craft armor. But basically these are the only prefixes that you're going to craft. It's going to be either armor and evasion, or armor and energy shield, or increased elemental damage with attacks. These are the crafts that you're pretty much going to put on your flask for prefixes. And for suffixes, you're pretty much going to use the veiled mods, fire and cold resistance, fire and chaos, lightning and chaos, cold and chaos. These are pretty much the suffixes that you're going to need. Now, you are going to need a mod which is going to be obtained by unveiling belts with veiled prefix. And the mod you're going to want, it's going to be this one right here with armor and maximum energy shield. You can see that if I block that, I'm also going to block maximum energy shield and maximum armor. And if I'm trying to slam for life, you're going to need this mod. If not, you're just going to craft mana. But ideally, you'd unveil for this mod. To craft Stygian Vises, apart from the bases and scours and fertile catalysts, you're going to need deafening essences of envy, some exalted orbs, and some orb of annulments. I wanted to show you my armor. So this armor right here, it's quite difficult to get these prefixes if I'm only using chaos orbs. If I'm only using the eldritch chaos orbs, it's pretty much impossible to get these prefixes. But if I'm using an exalt, whenever I get tier 1 or tier 2 of one of these prefixes, increase maximum energy shield, it's much easier to obtain it, so I don't have to spend like 3,000 or 4,000 chaos orbs. So let's go over some situations you're going to encounter when crafting these belts. So let's just say that you have a belt that looks like this. It has like tier 2 of maximum life with fertile catalysts on them. It has chaos resistance and some another elemental resistance. What you can do at this point, there are two outcomes, and it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to risk it, or do you want to play it safe? If you want to just play it safe, at this point you go to the benchcraft and you craft, for example, fire and chaos, and you can try to sell this belt for anywhere between 3 to 4 divs. If it has tier 1, maybe you can ask for 5 to 6 divs, honestly. Which I know there are crazy prices, but people pay, especially at this point in the league, people are going to pay this crazy amount of divines for such a belt. But there's something else that you can do. You can just craft from the bench craft. You go and craft increased elemental damage with attacks like this, and now you can try to exalt. So I'm going to show you. Let's just reset this because so let's just say that I have this. What's the chance for me to get one of these good suffixes like tier 2 of flask duration, tier 2 of flask charges gained? Let's just say this amount of fire resistance, this amount of lightning resistance, and tier 1 life regeneration per second. It's going to be 1 in 5. So as I said, you can either craft the resistance and sell the belt as it is, and maybe somebody will pay like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 divs, depending on how good your belt looks like, or you can just try to exalt like this. And now, because I got cold resistance, this belt is worth much more. At this point, you don't want to exalt hoping that you're going to get armor, because people would pay a premium to get a belt that looks like this, only has life and increased elemental damage with attacks or armor, because they can then try to get either increased chaos damage or increased maximum life with Hunter Exalted Orb. So you would want to leave your belt like this, with an open prefix if possible. So that's the situation, and you decide whether or not you want to risk it. As I said, it's a 1 in 5 that it gives you a really good suffix, but sometimes it can give you something bad. Like for example, if you get a belt like this on the Exalt, at this point you can just craft armor, evasion, or armor and energy shield. And the belt like this, you can easily sell it for like 10 divs. I mean, probably not 10 divs because it has tier 2 life, so more like 6 divs. But if it had tier 1 life, you can sell it for like 10 to 12 divs. Let's cover another situation. So let's just say that your belt looks like this. It has good suffixes. You cannot use Wild Bristol Matron to craft suffixes, cannot be changed and use Veiled Chaos Orb, because, as I said, people value maximum life as much as possible on Stygian Vises, and the Veiled maximum life is going to be 60, and it's not good enough. So what you can do at this point, you want to block. I'm going to show you. So on the prefixes, on the prefixes, when you're trying to exalt for maximum life, you can block either mana or you can block maximum energy shield. But the only way you can craft maximum energy shield, let's just say that this is blocked, and you look here at crafted modes, you're also going to block armor. And you don't want to block armor. So these are belts from like 1 or 2 weeks old, and they're still here for sale. I'm just trying to get rid of them. So you can, if you want to block maximum energy shield, you have to block this armor and maximum energy shield, and you don't want to block armor because armor is a valuable prefix. So you'd block maximum life first. So in this situation, you'd just go to the bench craft. On the prefixes, craft maximum mana, and then I would exalt depending on what I get. And at this point, I would just craft maximum life, which would be maximum 66, and just try to sell it for 1 or 2 divs if you're lucky, but it's probably more like 1 div, maybe 180 chaos for a belt like this. You don't want to use Wild Bristol Matron on a belt like this, as I said. Let's cover another situation. Let's just say that you happen to get tier 1 or tier 2 maximum life with chaos resistance and very bad prefixes and suffixes. At this point, you just annul and hope for the best. Alright, now I remove the chaos resistance, so I just go and roll again for another belt. If let's just say that if your belt looks like this, what you can do, you can just go to the bestiary, remove suffix at prefix, and there's a 50-50 chance that is going to remove the bad suffix. And you can also craft something like, for example, you can go to the bench craft and craft maximum mana, and there's a higher chance to give you armor, right? Or increased elemental damage with attacks. Not that it matters that much. And at this point, the way you move forward, you're going to craft increased elemental damage with attacks from the bench craft, and you're just going to exalt 2 times or just 1 time. For example, if it gives you As I said, if it gives you a good suffix like this is up to you. You either gamble with another exalt, or you just craft a resistance and sell it for like 2 or 3 divines. This right here, this belt, it's pretty much the same thing. You're going to craft maximum mana, you're going to exalt, you're going to exalt again, and at this point you can craft maximum life. But this belt, let's apply Catalyst Fertile. This belt is going to sell for much more because it has that life regenerate and also has a good roll. So you can probably sell this belt for 1.5 to 2 divs. Now, if you want, you can try to just go with suffixes cannot be changed, Wild Blister Matron and Veiled Chaos Orb to get that armor, and then you craft life, a lot of life. But usually, if you don't have a lot of maximum life, it's going to be difficult for you to sell it for more than 2.5 to 3 divs, a belt like this, right? Another instance would be, let's just say that your belt looks like this. It only has chaos and tier 1 life regen per second. At this point, I would just go to the bestiary and remove prefix, add suffix, because there's like 1 in 5 chance to give you something good. Like for example, this cold resistance, and then once again I would just craft mana, craft maximum mana, and try to exalt for tier 1 or tier 2 of maximum life. And from time to time you're going to, like in this case, and now I will just craft armor, and this belt right here I would probably sell it for like 8 divs, 6 to 8 divs, something like that. So just craft armor evasion or armor energy shield and try to sell it. You're going to make probably like 8, as I said, 6, 8, 10 divs for a belt like this. And that's pretty much it. These are, or if it doesn't have tier 1 life regen, if it has tier 1 flask charges gained, you do basically the same thing. If it has tier 1 flask, no, so suffixes. So as I said, if it has the flask mods tier 1, you do the same thing. Remove prefix, add suffix, and then try to, if it gives you like very good suffixes, then you would exalt for maximum life. And if it gives you a really shit suffix like this, then at this point you just annul and pray. That's pretty much what you do. And if it breaks, it breaks. If not, there's a really slim chance it looks like this. At this point you'd go to the bench, craft something like maximum mana or whatever. And the same thing would be to go to the beast craft, remove prefix, add suffix. It's a 1 in 5 chance to give you something good. This would be like somewhat decent. Craft maximum mana, exalt again, and then just craft maximum life and try to sell it. And if you get like, I don't know, maybe 1 div or 2 divs for a belt like this, or maybe some of them will not sell. Some of them you'll just list them for 1 div, and you'll probably sell them for like 100 chaos. And this is pretty much the way you craft Stygian Vises. As I said, this is a really good craft. Highly unlikely that you'll saturate the market, but you're going to need a few stashes, and you're also going to invest quite a lot. You're probably going to spend like 20 or 30 divs per hour with this strategy, but you're obviously going to make a lot of currency because you can craft like 50 to 60 belts per hour, and many of them will sell for like 2 or 3 or 4 divs. Some of them will end up selling for like 70 chaos or 60 chaos, depending on what price you're listing them. Some of them will sell for like 1 div, 2 divs, 150 chaos. Ideally, you just list them for a much higher price and lower them by day so that you make sure you don't get scammed.